All right, and welcome everyone to the Avalon Roundtable. So I'm so excited for you guys to be joining us today, and I am thrilled and honored to be joined by this group of beautiful women who are divine souls on this planet, helping in each of their own unique ways to help light the path for many people. And so today really is a meeting of the minds and a meeting of the hearts to share information and really is to share kind of what's been going on in 2020 and what we feel may be coming or is on our path for 2021. And so I figured, why not share? It's one of the best ways for us to learn because there's many paths. So I will start by introducing myself. My name is Ginette Biro. I'm a medium, a cosmic channeler, and co-founder of avalonspirit.com. And yeah, my passion is just to share knowledge, consciousness to help everybody on their path. And yeah, that's me. Cindy, how about you start off and tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, so obviously my name is Cindy. My last name is Lang, and I am the owner and operator of a company called Awaken Holistic Therapy. And I offer a few different services. One of them would be readings, and I like to tap into the Akashic records. I like to tap into my intuition. I'm a channel, and my goal is to empower people to wake up to the truth of who they are, to recognize how powerful they are and how unique they are, and to just embrace who they are so that they can move forward in their lives, creating the life of their dreams.
Love it.
And yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
beautiful, beautiful. Suzanne, how about you tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Suzanne Venice. I am in St. Albert, and I really struggle with defining myself, but I think the term that resonated the most just recently is an energy alchemist. So I work with others along their path and help them transmute energy, whether it's in physical or spiritual or emotional sense, and just gain that clarity and that understanding and more of that connection to their true self, and just giving them the tools to empower themselves. Very similar to Cindy in that empowering others to help them find their own inner authority is kind of my jam. So yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you. And Lisa, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Richmond. Um, I also have difficulties defining myself, but same thing. I am deeply intuitive into kind of tapping into the highest kind of Christ consciousness, spirit, to help people on their journey. Same thing. I think my tradition and my kind of shtick has always been kind of women and children, in a life coach type of way, but then really incorporating the two. So I like to bring in the beautiful knowledge that spirit so beautifully serves me to help others. I also work as a channel and a medium, and I feel like I use kind of the psychology, that's my like background, and then I really have integrated it into my spirituality, and it's just a passion that I have, and connecting with everybody, but probably specifically women and children. And I love it. I love it. I love the work also with animals. I'm deeply connected to the spirit of animals as well. So that's just connecting everything, and trying to bring it to use all of those tools for an individual when working with them. So that's my passion. I love it.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. And Elise, tell us.
Hi, my name is Elise Cathry. I am located in Beaumont, Alberta. I have a couple dogs wandering around back here, so you might see them in and out. So for me, I am a life and wellness coach, a yoga and meditation instructor, but then also with everything I do, really taking an intuitive lens. So I've spent a long time kind of cultivating that intuition. And for me, it really shows up um, almost in a channeling way. So sometimes through the life coaching or through maybe one-on-one yoga practices, things like that, I get guidance around where to kind of support and lead someone, especially if they're in a stuck space themselves. And I like to kind of talk about how we don't know what we don't know. So sometimes it's having to dig into our own selves, dig into our own intuition, but also when we're kind of in that stuck sense, having that intuitive piece come through me, and then we can kind of guide how I work with someone. So I really like working one-on-one with clients, and kind of a theme that I'm feeling here and that we're all kind of talking about is that idea of my thing is coming home to myself. So I spent a long time really disconnected from that self and who I was and what that looked like for me in my life and how I was kind of showing up in the world. So that's really the basis of everything that I do, is that connection back home to ourselves through intuitive movement, through connecting through source, meditation, and really connecting back in through ourselves with coaching and talking it out.
I love it. Thank you. And I'm going to take what you're saying right there and connecting back into self, and let that be the lead in for where I want to go with this discussion today, because I really want to talk about the massive amount of transformation that has been 2020, right? And really, I'm sure you guys would all agree with me that one of the biggest asks from the spirit world, from the higher realms, is for us to return to a sense of self, return to our home within, and discover or uncover those layers, right? And in many ways, discovering or uncovering those layers has been through confronting some rather polarizing, revealing aspects, right? Of self, community, society, government, health, like world, which is what makes it so powerful, right? Like we have really been thrust into a world-changing energy of 2020. So what have you guys kind of felt? Like I've talked a lot about in my podcasts about this waterfall experience of when the three guides of the light that I tend to channel from the higher realms came through, they kept talking about this waterfall experience where you go over the waterfall, and they encouraged us to leap willingly versus being shoved. And we dive into the waters below and we churn a little bit, but that churning reveals to us the things we need to see so that we can surface and come out renewed, right? And so there's been a lot of this waterfall. What have you guys kind of noticed going on for people around you and clients and stuff?
Nobody wants to go first. I'm like waiting.
Zoom, everybody just waiting for each other to talk. Like, who's gonna jump in?
What I've noticed is it like what you're talking about with going within, but for me, it feels more like a cracking open. It feels like within myself, first of all, and then what I'm noticing in clients is because the world has so much duality right now, it feels like we're going through a collective dark night of the soul, but it's forcing people to look at what the pressures are that are inside of themselves, of the deep emotions that need to be cleansed so that we can embrace more light. And it feels like we're going back to really testing our belief in whether or not we can survive, because it's testing, COVID is testing our health, it's testing our finances with the economy, it's testing all of our sense of security. And so I feel like Spirit is inviting people just to embrace more of a divine connection, more of a feminine aspect with their connection to the universe, supporting them in a different way than we've been supported thus far. And it's really kind of cool because I've been noticing a lot in my client sessions especially when I'm doing Reiki on people, that their light grids are opening up. The people that have really sat with their fears, really, really dug deep and looked at what they believe is true for them. All of a sudden, there's all of this sacred geometry light codes opening up in their body. And it's like there isn't the room for the darkness anymore. It's just dissipating without a big effort. It is a big effort to look at your stuff, but once you look at it, it feels like there's just this cracking open, and then it's just like this light is beaming out. And it's really amazing. It's really, really cool. So yeah, it's like the waterfall for you, but it's for me, it's feels like it's coming out of people.
That's beautiful.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. And I like that you were talking about sacred geometry, because I've been noticing that too in the energetics are showing up as sacred geometry. So instead of energies of chaos, they're starting to align in energetic patterns that then help us have a greater signature. Without going into too much detail, like I'm noticing that shift and change too, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, really. And one thing that I've really noticed is that everybody's is different. Everybody's grid is different. And I asked, I had some ascended masters come in that were helping with that in the session. And I said, well, why are they different? And they were like, well, of course they're different. Every person is different and everybody's lessons are different and not everybody's light grid's going to look the same. But it's unique to them and their pattern is going to create a frequency that can just shift and change those around them.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool.
Yeah. Beautiful. How about you, Suzanne? What have you kind of experienced with clients moving through this 2020 year, or themes, I guess we could even say?
Well, a couple of things. Collectively, at the beginning, I noticed, moving from a very masculine to having this feminine archetype of destruction almost coming in. And then those who I've really recognized, those who are embracing the feminine are ready to balance their feminine and masculine. And what I've noticed, similar to Cindy with the light code, so what showed up for me is light language activation just recently. And part of what I've been doing is channeling light language activation for those who have embraced the feminine and they're trying to merge and have this beautiful connection of the feminine and masculine coming through. And it feels like light language activation of their light code. So to me, it's the verbal. So that's what I've really seen is almost this destruction and then a re-embrace of the softness of the feminine and then matching that feminine and masculine in the healthy way, which I think as a collective, as a society, we're moving towards as well.
So just a quick thing too. So for those that aren't familiar with light language, can you explain a little bit about what it is?
I can explain from a personal experience, although it's relatively new for me, from my understanding, is that it's both ancient and galactic. It is unique to each person whom is activated within it. And it's a merging of frequencies of energy, light, sound, and vibration. And it comes through the throat chakra. And I also find that really fascinating that more people are waking up to this at the moment, because the other kind of channel download that came through within the last few weeks is that as a collective, we're moving from our logical mind to our heart space. Well, to travel through, we're getting stuck in the throat. And you're seeing it in people and the way they're having very polarized and contextualized dualistic conversations and keyboard wars and whatever it happens to be, is they're really not sure how to go from this logical to the heart space, and they have to travel through the heart center to get there, and it's coming out sometimes in not the most healthful ways as well.
Right. And so when you channel light language, you actually channel from another realm or another being a different language.
So what I believe to be truth is that I am accessing, when I channel for myself, it's from my high self. When I ask to work with a client and I channel from their high self, it's their high self, the way that my high self interprets and verbalizes and vocalizes it. When I ask to channel from the Pleiadian Council, it's coming through from them. And it's very different than the Arcturian Council. Even the intonations and the sounds are very, very different. And it's very much light language is vibrancy or frequency from the heart center. And so I think most people who are recipients of it feel it as a heart expansion as well as an activation.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's exciting. And there's a lot more coming out about light language, and more people are talking about it, and more people are kind of openly channeling light language now, which again, like, it has its own frequency to itself. It's not a language on our planet, but it can open up healing, transmutation, just like Reiki can open up healing, transmutation energetically for people. But this one is done, like you're saying, through sounds coming out from the throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it. Lisa, how are you feeling about 2020 and what it has been for people?
Well, I think, like everybody else, can agree that it's just been a time of like finding ourselves first. And I've seen a ton of like cyclical deaths and rebirths. And it's almost like how I have had it explained to me from uh, like from a higher source is that because COVID kind of came in, as they showed it to me in a visual, almost as like a way to like stop the direction in which our energy was going, and had to like stop and then turn the current and go a different direction. And so that is like reforming the old masculine paradigm and balancing it from the shadow into, you know, the divine masculine, and balancing it back into the feminine, and working that out like we were talking about. But then also it was done on such an expedited rate. That's why 2020 has been like, oh, because what's happening in the past year has been really could have taken, you know, a decade, right? A decade in a year. And so what's happening in a lot of people that I've been working with, and a lot of ways that it's been explained to me in downloads, is that people's higher selves and souls and divine contracts then are kind of put on a higher capacity to make them grow and learn. So it's really pushing people to a lot of their limits, physically in their human body, without really knowing why. So it can cause a lot of anxiety, it can cause a lot of fatigue, and it can cause, you know, mixed with the, you know, the narrative being fed to us from media, right? So I think when people's higher selves are working with them to make their kind of soul contract catch up in a decade's work to what, you know, that I feel like I've been doing a lot of working with people to help them connect with that, and knowing that that anxiety is their body's way of being their alarm clock, kind of, and letting them know when they're on the right track or when they need to take a rest, or and allowing people to see what their higher selves are really pushing them to do to catch up, and if they're choosing to stay here on this scale, what they're doing. And so I'm seeing people make like exceptional progress, but they become extremely vulnerable. So it was almost like what was showing me in a water vision, almost like when a wave will come and hit a beach, and then it pulls all the way back, it brings with it a lot of gunk, and then when it pulls back, all that gunk is just overly exposed, and that exposure can be extremely vulnerable and almost scary because it's all exposed, but it's all right there. It's all right there for them to see and to work through and to sift through. So, you know, we're picking out gems, we're connecting, and it's neat because I've had this beautiful privilege of connecting to different light councils and understanding what Pleiadian messages look like for myself versus, you know, when I get a divine mother message. And so I think it's really called myself forward, and really challenged me to say, okay, Lisa, really believe in all of your abilities to do this, because I've been called forward for the greater good for these people to come to me, for me to help. And as I believe, obviously, all you beautiful light workers are doing as well. So having the confidence in myself to get up in the morning when I too am going through it and being like, okay, for the greater good, because although this craziness has happened, it's exposing these gems, right? So I have loved it. I've loved 2020. I've also really struggled, and, you know, I had a baby during 2020, and so there's been a lot of physical and emotional stuff, but the increase in vibration and the beautiful messages about raising our conscious vibration is just such a gift. And I feel so privileged to be connecting with you ladies, and feeling truly like we're doing this for the greater good. So yeah, that's my personal experience in a little nutbag.
No, I agree. And you know, you really hit on something that really made a lot of sense too. And the guides that I've been channeling have been repeating this as well, was how fast 2020 has made a lot of people have to step up. And basically how they said it to me, they said in the next 4 years, so 2020 to 2024, the amount of change that is going to happen within that 4-year bubble is equivalent to what a century has done. So 100 years worth of change is being squashed into 4 years, right? And so if you think about it, we're just rounding out 2020, which is what seems to be the most explosive, and hopefully the rest is cleaning up and rebuilding, but we'll see. It makes a lot of sense though how you're saying that as well, though, that it's like it's speeding up paths and journeys and choice points and all this kind of stuff for people to shift, change, figure it out, get going, move on, move in, move out. You know what I mean?
I don't know too. I have 4 kids, so I maybe because I'm a bit connected with that. I don't know if anybody else works with children much or has, but I'm seeing so much of these beautiful like little souls that have come in, and I realize, oh, you came in purposely for this time because they are doing some fantastic work, light work as children to help, some people that are stuck, and they're beautiful messages that I receive on a daily basis from children that come up and tell me stuff. I'm like, what? Let me write that down. Like, they're gifted with these abilities. And, I don't know if anybody else has experience with that at all, but.
Hold on. I'm just having a technical difficulty. One moment, please.
It's counting us down.
It is counting us down. I can't believe it's counting us down, you guys. Well, we're going to do this in 2 parts. So let's finish up for now first with Elise. And then we're going to come back on, ladies, and we're going to do the part 2 of what we think for 2021, if you guys are okay with that. So I apologize. I was told that Zoom would carry on, but it's not carrying on. So Elise, what do you feel with your reflections with 2020?
Well, I'd like to start by saying it's not a 2020 meeting on Zoom unless there's something that happens with Zoom and some sort of like weird, oh, it's doing a thing.
Yeah,
so here we are. So right on course. Yeah. So it's funny for me, I was reflecting on what I was going to talk about with this. And I was like, I don't know, something will just come up. And like, sure enough, as you ladies were talking, I was like, oh, okay, all these things, I had to write it down. So for me, I'm seeing it, and not to say that you're all not in the same boat. For me, it's really been my personal journey has led to bringing in others and interactions and clients and just general collectiveness that is linked to that. So for me, losing my dad at the end of 2019. And I thought like, oh, 2019 was a rough year. And I was like, oh, great. It'll go out with a bang with losing my dad. And then 2020 will be a fresh year. And as we all know, obviously that's not happened in the exact way we thought it was. But what I'm feeling, I've talked when I lost my dad and it was sudden, the sheer amount of grief that I felt and the shock of what that grief experience was like has really, I think, crafted what I've seen in 2020, and not intentionally because that's what I wanted to see, but more as I shared openly, I found people came back to me reflecting the same thing and then gathering some learning. So for me, the grief experience was, it felt in the moment like it was shattering, and yet, Cindy, kind of what you were talking about that cracking open. I really feel like collectively, and I've written about this and talked about it, is the idea that collectively we all experience grief at one point or another in our lives. And yet now 2020 is a year of collective grief that we are all in as an entire planet together. And when I first started experiencing grief and then learning about it, I realized that it's not just about the loss of a loved one or the end of a relationship or the kind of traditional ways that we experience grief, but that it's really about any sort of emotion that comes with mass change in our day-to-day lives. And if we look at 2020, that has truly been what it is in every way, shape, and form, is like month after month, day after day, and now almost on like a daily, weekly basis, we're experiencing this change in the way that we're able to live our lives and the way that we interact with the people that we love. And my experience with grief is that I thought I knew, when I lost my dad, I thought I knew where I was going. And I had just kind of solidified into that. And then I lose somebody that I love. And all of a sudden I'm like taken on a completely different trajectory. And I feel as though that has shaped my relationships differently. It shaped my my physical health differently, really, and almost like, for lack of a better word, making it worse. But same with some relationships, kind of having them negatively impacted, maybe financially having negative impacts. But yet it was a breaking down to rebuild. And so I really feel that this collective grief is doing the same thing. It's like, you know, and we've all kind of spoke about it in different ways, is it's like we're going in one trajectory, and then if we're not learning, or we're needing to shift, or we're bogged down by the really human experience. And for me, what's happened is that I've really had to sink into my human experience. So I was a very like wooey, talk to the spirits, like, you know, Ginette and I would joke about, like, if people could hear our conversations, they'd be like, oh, okay. And I'm sure we're all in the same boat on that. And yet for me, after experiencing grief, and I'm kind of seeing it, especially in the first half of 2020, really having to sink into my human self, looking at, how is my body holding all of this? How is my mental health holding all of this? How is this showing up in my physical, like, 3D relationships? How is this showing up in the 3D life that I've built for myself? And having to like crack all that open and really take a look at it. And that's what lockdowns have forced us to do. It's what, for some of us, like job loss, financial strain, like all of these really hard challenges that people are experiencing are extraordinarily difficult for our human selves to move through. And yet there is so much grief associated with them that it can break it all down, so that we can actually see, like, oh gosh, what I built maybe isn't what I wanted, or isn't truly aligned with me, or the relationships, or the people, or the money, or the whatever it is that I've been driving towards. That's not actually the thing. That's not what I'm meant to be moving towards. And so I'm seeing this like collective grief experience that is, like Cindy, I think you were saying, this dark night of the soul. But in moving through it as one, there's a lot of power in how we can rebuild that. So it's like we're all doing it individually, and how do we kind of stand up after that? Standing up might be like a crawl, and you know, brace ourselves on the rubble and all of that sort of thing. And we're probably in a lot of ways still in that standing up phase. And yet that's where we can start fresh, and we can really look at like the roots of how we got to that big built house in the first place, and breaking it back down to that foundation. So that's kind of the journey that I've been on, and then what I'm seeing through sharing, through working with clients, through that. And a real focus for me, and I can see that moving forward into 2021 and how I'll work with my clients, is through like experiencing through our physical body, because I've learned so deeply how if we don't do that, it can become a real challenge in our physical health. So you know, hopefully moving forward, that'll be something to focus on a bit.
Yeah, I love that. You know, honestly, and I think a lot of what we're all talking about is really nicely expressed in both the personal and the collective journey. Like you were saying, like showing the layers, or like Lisa said, like the wave crashes ashore and brings all the stuff. And now here we are towards the end of 2020, realizing we need to clean up the beach. We need to do a big beach cleanup, guys. See what we've cleaned up, see how we can rebuild. So with that being said, we're going to go into part 2 here right away, about the whole concept of rebuilding and where we go for how we go forward in 2021. So we're going to come back with that right away.